How are we doing, folks? Well, what you were looking at behind me here is another gas turbine engine. This one here is a Honeywell GTCP 350 series auxiliary power unit, which puts out a whopping 1,400 equivalent horsepower. This is a serious beast. Let's have a look around it. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with auxiliary power units, basically to describe what it is a gas turbine engine powered compressor and generator, okay, and it is used in aircraft for providing pneumatic and electrical power when the aircraft primarily is on the ground, although it can be used in the air in certain situations. This particular one will be fitted to an Airbus A330 or A340 series aircraft and packs a serious punch. Now, this particular APU, the core of it, the actual power section, is also used in a certain turboprop engine, which would be the TPE331. So there will be a lot of commonality between turboprop engines. It spins at 44,650 RPM and puts out 324 pounds per minute of airflow at 50 psi. So that is a serious amount of power. By anybody's measure. This duct that we're looking at is the bleed duct that will go into the aircraft for the pneumatic supply. The air inlet is on the bottom, so the air for both the power section and for the load compressor go in through there and up this way. That's the igniter box there we're looking at. If the air goes forwards, it's going into the load compressor section, which is actually a separate module on this particular APU, or it goes into the power section here through a two-stage centrifugal compressor section, reverse flow annular combustion chamber, and three-stage axial turbine. And then is exhausted out the back of the aircraft. It would generally go through a silencer system. That doesn't do much by way of silencing it, to be honest with you. It's only just a kind of a mesh around the exhaust. But nevertheless, it's there anyway. So this basically is set up in our test cell here in my day job. And the Goldie plate there is where the generator will be mounted. Now that generator can punch out about 100 kilowatts of electrical power as well too, while the engine is also generating the pneumatic power. What we have on the accessory drive gearbox, which is from this point here back, you have your starting motor there, which is a serious piece of kit in itself. Cooling fan, which the air from would blow you off your feet without not taking in anything else. There's the fuel control unit, which is basically a fuel pump and a control system which controls the fueling and therefore the speed for the engine. It is a constant speed engine. So regardless of whether or not it's on or off load, it will stay at 44,650. Except when it's on cool down, and when it's on cool down it goes down to about 82%. There is a lube module there which is a oil pump and scavenge, and then there is an oil cooler here, and this is the oil cooler, and then the air that goes through the oil cooler would generally be discharged overboard. We also have a set of sensors, flow sensors, oil pressure and temperature, fuel pressure and temperature. That's your data memory module. Flow sensors down there as well. Over the other side of the APU then we have, as I showed you already, the igniter box. Now because the core of this APU is used in turboprop engines, it actually has a dual igniter system, which none of the other APUs that I deal with would have two igniters. They generally just have one. Then that is a surge valve and a load valve. So if the air is going out through the load valve, the surge valve is modulating or closed in order to manage the airflow that goes out to the aircraft. If the load valve is closed, surge valve is open, and the air, what little air the compressor will be making at that point, would be going overboard through the exhaust. When I say what little air it will be making in that situation, what I mean is there is also an inlet guide vane actuator down here, and that's what we're looking at there. Now the inlet guide vanes basically manage the airflow into the compressor. So if the compressor is not being used, the inlet guide vanes close off. Not all the way, but a significant portion of the way, and will manage that airflow. So only a little bit of air is going through the compressor at that stage. But when the demand increases, those inlet guide vanes open up. So yeah, as I said, the generator is not fitted at the moment. We don't test them with a generator because in the grand scheme of things, 100 kilowatts on an engine like this is actually a negligible load. So let's have a look and see it running. We're going to start it up now in a few minutes and get it up to speed, and then yeah, see what you think. Okay, so what you can hear in the background now is the fuel pump over in the corner over there. That blue thing running, which is just providing the initial fuel pressure. And we will go for a start now in a second. And when it goes to start, you will hear the igniter box clicking, and you will hear the starting motor kick in, and then we'll get an ignition, and you'll hear the light off. So let's go for it. There's ignition. Okay, so we're up and running and on speed now. So you can see here it says 100% RPM, and you can actually see a readout of the actual RPM on this screen here. So we're 41,700 RPM, which is still absolutely acceptable. Vibration readings on the right, oil pressure, oil temperature, fuel inlet boost, bleed orifice inlet, and gear case pressure. And then there's some valve positions down to the right, down below as well too. So one of the peculiarities of this particular APU is that you might have heard the kind of whistling noise when it started. When the inlet guide vanes that I described earlier on move between the, I think it's 74 and 77 degree position, they whistle. Basically, it's like blowing across the top of a bottle, and you can hear that whistling for miles around. If you're up at the airport and there's a 331, 350 series APU running, it's very characteristic by that particular noise, and it's the only APU I know of that actually does it as well too. And yeah, you might not actually hear the APU run, but you'll still hear that. So obviously we're in a soundproofed booth here because you cannot hear yourself think in there. I obviously have ear defenders on when I'm standing beside the APU, but that APU is now on idle. As I said, when it's on full load, it sounds more or less the same. It's a bit noisier, but it doesn't, it doesn't speed up or slow down or anything like that. It just remains basically at a constant speed, doing its thing happily there. So yeah, look, I think we'll leave it there. It's just a basic introduction on this particular APU. But yeah, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in a future video.